Bleach meets Naruto, the mad scientist who revolutionized shinobi warfare. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 41. Taking half of the chakra metal stock at once. The new technique to be developed this time once again shocked Orochimaru. What an amazing idea. It completely jumped out of the existing framework, cut in from an angle that others could not expect, and pointed to a higher level. Tomorrow, let's go to the third generation teacher to apply together. Orochimaru took a deep breath and said, "Okay." Nara Shintaku smiled and nodded. The next day, the two walked into the Hokage's office with the application form. "You want chakra metal?" The third generation listened to the application of the two and nodded without hesitation. "Of course, no problem. Are you planning to make special ninja tools? Do you want me to help you contact the master craftsman of the Iron Country?" The third Hokage said, raising his hand to sign a warrant. But Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru smiled and shook their heads. "Teacher, we don't want any ninja tools. Third generation adults, take a look at this." The two spoke at the same time. Then, Nara Shintaku handed over a stack of application forms. "Yes, a stack. Why so many?" The third Hokage took it blankly, looked down, and was dumbfounded. There were not only application forms for Nara and Orochimaru. There were also applications for the chakra metal shares of Tsunade, Jiraiya, Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Kushina, and the three heads of the Inoshikacho family. All of these people applied for the chakra metal shares, which were all given to Nara. Adding all the people together, the applied shares directly emptied half of the village's inventory. Chakra conductive metal, just add a little, you can forge a weapon with excellent performance. The third Hokage's eyelids twitched, and he said with a toothache, "What's the use of you wanting so much? We are going to use it to develop a ninjutsu." Nara explained. "Ninjutsu?" The third Hokage paused. What kind of ninjutsu requires so much chakra metal? Moreover, he had never heard of any ninjutsu that was related to chakra metal. The third Hokage instinctively didn't believe it. But considering the natural energy and spiritualization technique before, he didn't dare to make a hasty conclusion. The third Hokage hesitated for a moment, gritted his teeth, and signed the application form in agreement. "Give it to you. But don't abuse it. The village doesn't have much of this stuff in stock. The share you applied for is enough to make 20 high-performance ninja tools." Got an agreement. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru contentedly took the warrant to the warehouse to get things. As for the third Hokage's instructions, the two turned their heads and threw it behind their heads. What is abuse? They used it for formal research. 100 grams of chakra metal. The person who managed the warehouse, when he saw the third Hokage's warrant, his eyes were about to bulge out. This is half of the existing inventory. 2. The people in the warehouse looked at Orochimaru and Nara Shintaku, and cold sweat oozed from their foreheads. The warrant is real. In front of them are also celebrities of Konoha, Orochimaru and Nara Shintaku. But he was not sure about receiving so much chakra metal at one time, so he could only ask Orochimaru and Nara to wait for a while and send someone to the Hokage's office to confirm. After repeated confirmation, this person dared to open the warehouse and handed 100 grams of chakra metal to Nara, and apologized at the same time. "Sorry, 100 grams is too much." "It's okay." Nara didn't care, took the chakra metal, and left with Orochimaru. In the back, only one ninja was sighing. 100 grams of chakra metal, how much is it for me? Don't think about it, it's a very precious material. Yes, when making weapons, even adding 1 gram will have a very good conduction effect. I don't know what weapons Orochimaru and Nara are going to make. It needs so much chakra metal, it should be a very powerful ninja tool, right? Maybe it's the 7 ninja swords of Kyoryuger? Everyone speculated. In Orochimaru's personal laboratory, Nara sat opposite him. 100 grams of chakra conductive metal was divided into two 50-gram samples, each in their hands. The two casually looked at the chakra metal in their hands. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was an extremely precious material. In the eyes of researchers like them, it was just a special material. "Let's get started," Nara said. "Okay." Orochimaru nodded, with a flash of eagerness in his eyes. Nara's idea made him feel hot. If this technique can be developed, it will definitely have an amazing effect. The satisfaction and pride gained from participating in the development of an excellent ninjutsu is like poison, making Orochimaru deeply addicted and unable to stop. The two immediately began to perfect the technique of soul-exclusive weapon. What is the core concept of this technique, Shintaku? Even though I've read your scroll, I still don't understand. Why is it called a soul-specific weapon? What's the exclusiveness? You know the Uchiha clan's Mangekyo Sharingan, right? Reflect the soul and awaken a unique and exclusive eye technique. This is the core concept. The Uchiha clan uses Sharingan as a carrier, and I use chakra metal as a carrier to reflect the soul and form a unique weapon. Incredible concept. Don't you want to see what your soul looks like, Orochimaru-sensei? Ha ha ha, I couldn't ask for more. Episode 42. Pearl Thoughts. As expected, ordinary means of injecting chakra are too slow. It can't even permanently give metal properties. You are right, Shintaku. You must use the extremely free chakra changes in the state of spiritualization technique to change the properties of metal at a deep level. Do you feel it, Orochimaru teacher? Surging emotions, surging memories, unwilling desires. These spiritual information can make chakra metal change. This means that we have to use our own hearts to forge it. Mitaku, the metal is shrinking. But this is not enough. We have too many human factors mixed in, which is not enough to fully reflect the heart. What do you want to do, Orochimaru teacher? I want to go deeper. For example? Do you know how pearls and shells are formed? What a crazy idea, Orochimaru teacher. Pain. Severe pain. Nara opened his eyes and felt a sharp grain of sand embedded in his soul, cutting his soul all the time. This brought unbearable pain. The reaction on the body was dizziness, palpitations, vomiting, high fever, limb twitching, cramps, etc. Since Orochimaru proposed the pearl method, Nara considered it again and again and used this method. Use yin-yang escape to change the characteristics of chakra metal, and roughly embed it in the soul of the self, so that the soul and metal rub against each other. This friction will cause severe pain to the soul. However, pain will stimulate emotions. Let the desires, wills and other things buried deep in the memory emerge. These things that emerge will be infused into the metal for forging. Nara will not intervene in the whole process. Just endure the pain and use the spiritualization technique regularly to repair the soul. That's enough. What this piece of metal will become in the end depends on itself. Haha, the pain at the soul level, so this is what it feels like. Orochimaru's figure appeared, trembling and bringing a pile of dry food. His face became paler and paler, and he was so bloodless. His face was covered with cold sweat. However, he was still smiling. No wonder the awakening of Mangekyo Sharingan requires the ultimate pain, the need to understand love and lose love. In essence, it is a kind of self-analysis. Stripping yourself from the spiritual level and digging out the emotions deep in your heart, just like a person cutting open his flesh and blood and taking out his heart. Tsk tisk. Orochimaru's face actually showed an intoxicated look. As if he was enjoying this pain. Nara Shintaku didn't care. Who doesn't go crazy when doing research? Chakra metal is not enough. Nara Shintaku took a deep breath and said calmly. Orochimaru's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. It's amazing that you can stay calm in this pain, even your hands are steady. Nara Shintaku didn't answer. This is the template, one of the talents given to him. Kurotsuchi Mayuri made a lot of changes to her soul. If you don't have strong endurance and determination, you can't do those things at all. Well, you are a monster. Orochimaru shrugged and said, there is still 100 grams of stock in the village. We only took half of it last time. Later, go and take the remaining 100 grams. But it may not be enough. Orochimaru fell into deep thought. Nara Shintaku looked calm and said, use it first. That makes sense. Orochimaru nodded. The effect of this exclusive soul weapon forging technique was beyond their expectations. It can be said that it was very successful. However, the consumption was also very large. 100 grams of chakra metal fell into their souls, and 90% of the volume was directly consumed, leaving only 10% of the essence. This 10% of the essence is not enough to complete the carrying of their souls. They need more. Hokage office. The third Hokage looked at Orochimaru and Nara in astonishment. He never expected that only half a month had passed. The two came to apply for chakra metal again. Didn't I give you 100 grams? The third Hokage covered his forehead with a headache and asked, "What will you use so much chakra metal for?" "If it is used in weapon forging, there are at least 20 ninja tools now. But if I give it to you, you won't hear a sound." The third Hokage waved his hand to refuse. Although the village still has 100 grams of chakra metal quota. But this is decades of accumulation since the establishment of Konoha. It can't be spent casually by Orochimaru and Nara. Other ninjas in need have no use. At least, we have to see some results. Teacher, who said there is no sound? Orochimaru smiled slightly and opened his palm. There was nothing on his palm. The third Hokage looked at it and showed a puzzled expression. Then, Orochimaru refines chakra, yin-yang nature transformation. The 1/10 metal essence in the soul turns from virtual to real, and appears little by little in Orochimaru's palm. A crystal clear piece of iron with a faint white light appeared in Orochimaru's hand. What is this? The third Hokage widened his eyes in surprise and asked hurriedly, time and space ninjutsu? No, this thing is more like a creation. Yin-yang? The third Hokage stared at the small piece of metal in Orochimaru's hand, frowning. He couldn't understand it. Episode 43. Light the flame, light the fire that will burn you. It is indeed yin-yang release. Nara Shintaku explained, saying lightly, with the help of yin-yang release, chakra metal is endowed with the property of virtual real transformation, and it is transformed into a soul weapon. While speaking, Nara Shintaku also stretched out a hand and materialized the metal essence in his soul. Soul weapon? The third Hokage was surprised and opened his mouth wide. He seemed to have heard something incredible. Is this something that can be done by the technique? I also got inspiration from the spiritualization technique. Nara Shintaku said, the spiritualization technique can materialize the soul. Conversely, I can also use it in reverse to hollow other objects. The most suitable object at present is chakra metal. After hollowing it, it can be hidden in the soul and held by the soul. Whether it is suddenly summoned or used in the spiritualization technique state, it can provide good assistance. Nara Shintaku hid the most core content. Reflecting the soul. This is the decision he discussed with Orochimaru. Reflecting the soul is too easy to touch the nerves of the Uchiha clan. It's better not to reveal it to the public. Hiss. The third Hokage took a breath of cold air. The inspiration of the spiritualization technique? Reverse use, hollowing the chakra metal? Creating a hollow weapon carried by the soul? These words were like bombs, bombarding the third Hokage's heart, shaking his heart and making him fluctuate. Is this technique also developed by you, Shintaku? The third Hokage took a few deep breaths and asked after barely calming down. Yes. Nara Shintaku nodded, just like the blood suit technique, I proposed the framework and Orochimaru teacher helped fill it in. Orochimaru smiled and said nothing beside him. He straightened his chest slightly. Because, this time, he could admit with a clear conscience that he helped fill in the content. The last blood suit technique actually didn't need him at all. As long as Nara Shintaku spent some time learning medical knowledge and sealing knowledge, he could complete the filling alone. But this time, it was different from the last time. The pearl idea he proposed greatly promoted the perfection of this technique. This made Orochimaru slightly pleased. Okay, I approve it. The third Hokage looked at Nara in amazement, gritted his teeth, and signed a warrant. The remaining 100 grams of chakra metal in the village are all given to you. In addition, the 30 grams that I and the Sarutobi clan have in reserve are also given to you. If it's not enough, I have no other choice. The third Hokage signed the warrant with gritted teeth. He could imagine how much public opinion would be stirred after this warrant was issued. This is all the chakra metal in the village. Giving it all to Nara and Orochimaru means that other ninjas cannot apply for a trial. But obviously, in the mind of the third Hokage, Nara is more important. Thank you, third generation lord. Nara took the warrant with a smile, and went directly to the warehouse with Orochimaru to collect the metal. In the office, The third Hokage's mouth twitched. He left after getting the things. How ruthless. He didn't even stay to talk to this old man and cultivate some feelings. In the warehouse. The ninja on duty looked at Nara and Orochimaru, and then looked at the Hokage's warrant that was exactly the same as 10 days ago. Wait a moment, both of you. He broke out in a cold sweat. He shouted in his heart. This is all the inventory in the village. After confirming it again and again, he dared to open the door of the warehouse and handed the remaining 100 grams of chakra metal to Nara and Orochimaru. The two got the metal. They couldn't wait to leave and would continue forging. Only the ninjas in the warehouse looked at each other in bewilderment. What kind of ninja tool do you need to use so much chakra metal? Are you really going to forge Konoha's 7 ninja swords? Even if it's the 7 ninja swords, it wouldn't take 200 grams of metal. But the third generation agreed. If the third generation agreed, there must be a good reason. In Orochimaru's personal laboratory. Humph. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru groaned in pain at the same time. The two stuffed the new chakra metal, hollow, into their souls and ground them. It hurts so much. In this state, I can't handle anything else. Is there a good solution, Shintaku? There are two. Oh. The first is to grind the soul only for a short time every day, and carve out the soul weapon bit by bit over a long period of time. I don't have that much time, the war is about to begin. Then the second one is the only way. Please go ahead. Put your heart into it. What do you mean? While the metal is being ground by our soul, it is also grinding our soul in reverse, which is why we feel pain. So, this is not only the forging of weapons, but also the forging of our souls. Orochimaru remained silent, frowning in thought. Nara Shintaku looked pale and sweaty, but his voice was still calm as he said, just like the Uchiha clan's Mangekyo Sharingan, you need to understand love and then lose it. How can you understand love if you don't devote yourself to it? Don't resist pain, Orochimaru-sensei. You need to ignite the deepest part of your heart into a fire that will burn yourself. In the high temperature of ultimate, imprint the most unforgettable things on the chakra metal. Only in this way can you integrate the chakra metal with yourself. Only then can you truly forge a soul weapon. Episode 44. Soul Crown. Nara closed his eyes after he finished speaking. Opposite. Orochimaru suddenly looked up and stared at Nara with his eyes closed in astonishment. In his perception, Nara, who seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, seemed to be burning with a flame. It was hot, deep, and painful. It was as if he turned himself into fuel and wanted to burn everything. In such a flame. The chakra aura on Nara's body trembled wildly. Deep in the soul. The chakra metal that had just been inserted seemed to fall into the sun, melting, quenching, and disintegrating rapidly. It turned into a piece of iron that flashed with a white light. Burn yourself too? Orochimaru looked at Nara in shock, his expression absent-minded. An hour later. Nara slowly opened his eyes were cool, like a quiet lake, calm and clear. A sense of transparency came naturally. Pour my experiences and emotions of 2 lives into it. What kind of things will be smelted? I'm really looking forward to it. Nara Shintaku smiled. Ahead. Orochimaru's eyes flickered, he hesitated for a long time, and sighed. In his voice, there was determination and enlightenment. He also closed his eyes. Then, the scorching flame burned in his heart. The hunger of youth. The excitement of contacting ninjutsu. The despair of the Rain Shinobi battlefield. The glory after becoming famous. The regret when Nawaki died. The desire for the position of Hokage. Danzo's bewitching. The sadness of the fragility of life. And so on, all burned. As if tearing open the wounds of the past, when those scenes emerged, Orochimaru was in so much pain that he wanted to die. But in this pain, he gained an indescribable relief and calmness. He also suddenly understood why Nara Shintaku said that this is not only the forging of metal, but also the forging of self. Because none of the above is important. They are just fuel for the flame. What really matters is what is left after these things are burned out. More than an hour later. Orochimaru opened his eyes were still calm, even with a hint of tranquil zen joy. A sense of relief emanated from him. Congratulations on your success, Nara said with a smile. Thank you. Orochimaru smiled and nodded. Neither of them asked the other what they saw deep in their hearts when they forged themselves. This is everyone's secret. Although, Nara roughly guessed Orochimaru's heart. But because of the influence of this time traveler, Orochimaru is destined to take a different path, and the original plot can only be used as a reference. They continued to discuss and perfect this technique as if nothing had happened. Although the forging is completed, it is only a semi-finished product. A prototype of little value. It has not produced any special changes that should have occurred by reflecting the soul. What do you think, Shintaku? It's simple. It has no spirituality now. Our entire process is just to temper it, but not to truly awaken it. Have you heard of the saying that the sword becomes a sacrificial spirit, Orochimaru-sensei? You mean, blood sacrifice? No, it's just a ritual of infusing spirits, not necessarily a blood sacrifice. I think I thought of the spirit transformation technique, right? That's right. Nara Shintaku smiled and nodded. So far, their forging of chakra metal has only reached the stage of sealed state, making a mold that can transform virtuality into reality and carry the will of the soul. The mold has not yet come alive. That is, the sound of the sword has not yet been heard, awakening the sealed state to the real Zanpakuto. The metal essence is now in perfect harmony with our souls, and has the hollow characteristics of the soul body. But it is still just a dead object. So, we have to use the spiritualization technique to activate it and give it spirituality. In this way, the spiritual will we instill in it will be revealed and become a special weapon that reflects our soul. Nara Shintaku said with a smile. Orochimaru sighed, you are really a monster, Shintaku. If I do it myself, I am afraid I will never be able to think of such a great technique until I die. Nara Shintaku smiled and waved his hand. The two stopped talking nonsense. Each of them performed the spiritualization technique. Because the metal essence has been tempered to be in perfect harmony with their souls. So once the spiritualization technique is performed, this essence will be activated along with the soul. Swish. Light. The white light, like the sea, gushed out from the essence. A unique spiritual power was born on it. This spirituality is extremely soothing. It was like their child, and the moment it appeared, it lightly spun around them, flew, and rose. Finally, it fell into their hands. Each turned into something different. One was a scalpel. The other was a crown with intricate patterns. Soul scalpel. Orochimaru grasped the light, and in his hand, it turned into a sharp scalpel. Nara Shintaku also grasped his light, fell into his hand, and turned into a crown. He put the crown on his head. Soul crown. The air was silent. Nara Shintaku and Orochimaru were both immersed in the soul weapons in their hands. Because of the reflection of the soul. Their soul weapons each have unique and exclusive powers. Crown? Nara Shintaku communicated with his soul weapon and felt the power in it. The soul crown conveyed a feeling of closeness and cheering. Like a newborn puppy, it leaned on Nara Shintaku intimately. Gradually, Nara Shintaku learned about the power of the soul crown. Episode 45. The one who travels through dimensions, and the new technique test session. This is a unique power. The crown symbolizes glory, achievement, immortality, and sublimation. This soul crown can extract abstract concepts such as Nara's experience, achievements, fame, and merits, and melt them into special gems to be inlaid on the crown. These melted gems, like the laws of divine power, bless Nara. For example, now there is a brilliant gilded gem inlaid on the top of the crown. People who travel through dimensions can perceive the flow of fate. Your existence will not be detected by prophecy, foreknowledge, clairvoyance, calculation, etc. When affected by the power of fate, you will be aware of it. There are 3 powers in total. It seems nothing special. But the level of power is very high. It actually involves the most mysterious field of fate. Interesting. Does this mean that I am immune to the interference of fate? Well, not being affected by fate also means not being favored by fate. Nara nodded inwardly and hollowed the soul crown. Together with his soul, it returned to his body. On the opposite side, Orochimaru also finished exploring his soul armor, and his soul also returned to his body. What are you going to do with this technique? Orochimaru asked. Don't tell me you're going to teach it publicly? Although anyone can practice it in theory. But if you are proficient in the spiritualization technique, 99% of people will be stuck. In addition, there is a large amount of chakra metal consumption, which makes it impossible for ordinary people to afford it. Moreover, forging chakra metal into soul armor also requires self-combustion. With these three difficulties, ordinary people can't practice it at all. Orochimaru looked at Nara. Nara had also considered this issue. Teaching, it must be taught. After all, spreading it out can improve the development progress of the template. Just delete it. Nara answered without thinking. What to delete? Remove the spiritualization technique, remove the self-combustion, and make a simplified version. Nara Shintaku said, just like the first method I told you before. Oh. Orochimaru's eyes lit up. If ordinary people can't use the spiritualization technique, then use the soul out-of-body secret technique. If there is no self-combustion method, it will take a long time, generation after generation to forge. Nara Shintaku smiled. Use the power of the family to forge a soul weapon that suppresses the foundation. Ha ha ha. Orochimaru laughed when he heard it. It is obviously a method that castrated most of the content, but when you say it, it seems to be something extraordinary. Family foundation? Generation after generation of joint efforts? I'm afraid those ninjas will be so excited when they hear it, and they are willing to pay a heavy price in exchange for this technique. Nara Shintaku also laughed loudly. The same thing, in a different way of saying it, seems to have changed its nature. The two decided on a plan. Soon. The new technique test meeting that has not appeared for a long time was held again. This time, not only the top leaders participated. They also specially invited all the ninja clans including Senju, Uchiha, Hyuga, Zulucho, Aburame, Inuzuka, Gekko, Kurama, and Yuhi to participate. These clan leaders were surprised when they received the invitation. New technique, test meeting? I've heard of this thing. The genius of the Nara family has held it many times before. Every time it is held, the developed technique will be publicly taught. I see, is that the case with the blood suit technique and the flying sickle technique? It seems that a new technique has been born? I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, the technique developed by the genius of the Nara family is extraordinary. They were full of expectations. 3 days later. Gathered in a base in Umbu. The Sannin have arrived. Many clan leaders of the ninja clans have also arrived in advance. They are gathering together and whispering. Because it is an open test, the clan leaders of each family are allowed to bring more people. Yuhi Shinku brought her daughter. Yuhi Kurenai. The only difference between the names of the father and daughter is the word Jin. Father, will we be able to meet Nara Shintaku-kun later? The 7-year-old Yuhi Kurenai asked curiously with a pair of ruby-like eyes. She has black hair and is as delicate as jade. She has a calm temperament. You can tell at a glance that she looks like a lady from a noble family. She doesn't look like a ninja at all. Yes, although he is a few months younger than you, he has developed many powerful ninjutsu and is an incredible genius. Yuhi Shintaku touched her daughter's head and said with a smile. I wonder what kind of person he is. Yuhi Kurenai looked curious. You'll know later. Yuhi Shintaku smiled. Not long after. All the people invited to visit the dojo. Nara Shintaku also slowly entered the venue and walked in, standing in front of everyone. Is he Nara Shintaku? Yuhi Kurenai covered her mouth with a flash of surprise in her eyes. Although Nara Shintaku is only 6 years old, he looks like he is 12 years old, and his temperament is calm, not like a child at all. This sense of maturity that surpasses his peers immediately attracted Yuhi Kurenai's attention. Everyone, thank you for coming to this ninjutsu test meeting. Nara Shintaku faced everyone with a calm expression and talked freely. I believe you have also discovered it. The audience invited this time is very different from the past. You are either from the ninja clan or from a ninja family. This happens to have a lot to do with the new technique we are testing this time. Nara Shintaku smiled. Episode 46. Kunai that goes against common sense. The audience raised their eyebrows after hearing this. They did notice this. Among the people invited to participate, except for Master Jiraiya, all of them were ninjas with families behind them. As for Orochimaru, he stood here as a developer. Is this technique suitable for the ninja clan? But the power inherited by each family is completely different. Is it a technique that requires the joint efforts of many people? No, I heard that a large amount of chakra metal was exchanged before. Ninja tool-related techniques? The clan leaders became curious. It's about the family. All of them became serious. Let's not waste any more time, I'll get straight to the point. Nara Shintaku smiled and said, you should have heard that Orochimaru and I exchanged a large amount of chakra metal. Many people think that we are going to forge ninja tools. No, we are developing ninjutsu. Of course, it is actually a special ninja tool. Nara Shintaku said, stretching out his palm. There was nothing on his palm. Please look at it. He said softly. Everyone's eyes fell on his palm. Whoosh. A shadow suddenly appeared in the empty palm. The shadow looked like a kunai. What is that? It seems to have appeared suddenly. I sense the breath of Intuin chakra. Is that a kunai forged with chakra metal? Everyone was wondering. Whoosh. The kunai in Nara's hand quickly transformed from a shadow to a solid object. And held in Nara's hand. What? Everyone was shocked. The Uchiha and Hyuga people couldn't help but open their blood eyes. How did that kunai appear? Time and space ninjutsu? No, it has nothing to do with time and space. It was a shadow that was transformed into a solid object out of thin air. Then, Nara let go of his hand and let the kunai fall to the ground. Bang! It looked like an ordinary kunai, but it smashed through the ground like a boulder. It smashed a 10-meter-sized crater on the ground. How is it possible? This weight is totally unreasonable. Is it an Earth-style gravity ninjutsu? No, there is no Earth-style chakra. It seems to be the characteristic of the kunai itself. Everyone was shocked. Look at the big hole on the ground, and then look at Orochimaru. Their faces were full of shock. Hee, this is just an unfinished product made of the chakra metal given by the teacher. Orochimaru showed a mysterious smile on his face. He let the people around him stare at him without saying a word. So amazing. In the crowd, Yuhi Kurenai opened her mouth very unladylike, with a shocked expression. She couldn't understand it at all. But even if she couldn't understand it, she could still realize the horror of the kunai. Is it a weapon that can be summoned at any time? Jiraiya muttered to himself with a serious expression. Not only that, the weight of the kunai is hard to explain. The third Hokage looked thoughtful and he had caught something. But it was difficult to figure it out for a while because of the paper. Is this what you and Orochimaru have researched from the spiritualization technique? Tsunade looked surprised and looked at Nara Shintaku deeply. In the field. Nara Shintaku waved his hand casually, and the kunai on the ground disappeared. Then, he flipped his palm again, and the kunai appeared in his palm again. Throw it out casually. Whoosh. The kunai shot out like a cannonball, pressing the air to make a muffled sound. In the blink of an eye, it hit the wall dozens of meters away. Boom. This huge wall was shattered. The front wall was broken into pieces and fell to the ground. Everyone was speechless and silent. This kind of power can already penetrate a mountain. All the ninjas present, even with the most powerful Earth-style ninjutsu, could not defend against this bombardment. You know, the walls of the Umbu base are specially made. Not only are there earthen stones, but also fine iron is buried. But it was still smashed by Nara Shintaku, which shows how terrifying this attack is. You are curious about this kunai? Nara Shintaku waved his hand again, and the kunai that pierced through the wall returned to his hand regardless of the distance. It should have been an extremely heavy kunai. Held in Nara Shintaku's hand, it seemed like an ordinary kunai, light and effortless. I will reveal the secret now. Hearing this, everyone immediately pricked up their ears and looked at Nara Shintaku very seriously. Just like students in a ninja school classroom. You should all know the spiritualization technique. This technique can activate and materialize the virtual soul. Nara Shintaku smiled slightly and began to talk. This gave me an inspiration. Why can't it be used in reverse? For example, turn a solid object into a phantom. Boom. A thunderbolt flashed through everyone's mind. Reverse use? Oh my god, can it be done this way? I guessed right just now that kunai was turned from phantom to real. No wonder it can be recalled regardless of distance. Everyone was shocked, looking at Nara Shintaku in disbelief. Reverse use? Jiraiya was stunned and murmured, "It's true, Shintaku and Orochimaru, only you can think of this way of use, right? Teacher, it's difficult for ordinary people to even learn the spiritualization technique." Namake's Minato smiled bitterly. No wonder, this kid told me that his understanding of the spiritualization technique surpassed the second Hokage. It turns out to be true. The third Hokage said to himself in surprise. In the crowd, Yuhi Kurenai also widened her eyes, with an expression of disbelief. Use the spiritualization technique in reverse to hollow out physical objects? Is it true? Is this something humans can do? Episode 47. Hong, you need to get along with Nara Shintaku. Although she was young, she knew the difficulty of the forbidden technique. The spiritual technique, among the forbidden techniques, is also the most difficult ninjutsu. Countless people have gone crazy and died because of practicing this technique. Even the second Hokage himself, as the developer, was unwilling to practice the spiritual technique because it was too dangerous. The second Hokage himself was not sure. What a terrible talent. Father Yuhi Shinku was stunned with surprise and whispered to himself, no wonder he was accepted as a disciple by Lord Orochimaru. He developed so many techniques at the age of 6. When he grows up, I'm afraid. A flash of heat flashed in Yuhi Shinku's eyes. Is the third ninja god coming to Konoha? Even. Can the era of the two gods of Konoha be reproduced? Yuhi Shinku couldn't help but look at Orochimaru, and ripples appeared in his heart. At this moment, he made a certain determination. Hong. Yuhi Shinku turned her head and said to her daughter Yuhi Shinku seriously, I will try to ask Orochimaru to accept you as a disciple. You have to get along well with Nara Shintaku. If possible. Yuhi Shinku paused for a moment before saying, it would be best if you could become his partner. Partner? Yuhi Shinku's face turned red when she heard this. She glared at her father in shame and annoyance and blamed him. Father, what nonsense are you talking about? Hee, Hong, don't you appreciate outstanding people? Nara Shintaku fits your mate selection very well. Yuhi Shinku laughed and said, moreover, from all aspects, he is a very good candidate for a husband. If it's him, father, I don't object. Just don't kill anyone before the age of 16. Hearing this, Yuhi Shinku became even more embarrassed. She turned her head and ignored her father who was talking nonsense. These words, said to a 7-year-old daughter, make people feel perverted anyway. But in the Hokage world, it's normal. You will understand my painstaking efforts in the future. Yuhi Shinku sighed inwardly as he looked at his shy daughter. The Yuhi family is famous for illusion. But this kind of illusion inheritance is too weak. It is not even a secret technique. She can only become an elite jonin who is good at illusion. But Yuhi Shinku has no talent in other aspects, and is only good at illusion. She is a very biased child. If you are very biased in illusion, forget it. The problem is that the biased illusion is not strong either, and can only be considered above average among peers. The biased ability of a poor student is meaningless. Yuhi Shinku had to consider her daughter's future life. If she could be entrusted to a strong person and get protection, that would be the best. What he didn't notice was Yuhi Shinku turned her head away, and quietly came back, staring at Nara Shintaku in the field. Even if her father didn't say it, she was paying attention to Nara Shintaku. Who wouldn't pay attention to outstanding opposite sex? In the field, Nara Shintaku continued to explain the principle of this technique. Now you understand, the logic of this technique is to use the spiritualization technique in reverse to hollow a certain entity. And chakra metal, because it has good conductivity. It can reduce the difficulty of hollowing. This is why Orochimaru and I applied for chakra metal. Everyone suddenly realized. They had heard about this before. They always thought that it was to create some ninja tools. Unexpectedly, it was to develop a new ninjutsu. Back to chakra metal. Orochimaru and I successfully hollowed a piece of chakra metal. After hollowing, chakra metal has undergone magical changes. It produces a special power, which is what everyone has seen just now. Nara Shintaku pointed to the big hole on the ground and then to the shattered wall in the distance. Everyone's heart was warmed by what they saw. Not only does it transform from virtual to real, but it also has special powers. Such a weapon is simply a killer weapon for ninjas. As for chakra metal, if you buy it with all your strength, you will always get some. I can't wait. Transformation from virtual to real. Special power. Just the things that are shown make them eager. After studying, teacher Orochimaru and I confirmed one thing. Nara Shintaku continued, that is, chakra metal after hollow will have different powers due to the fluctuations of the forger's emotions, will, desires and other spiritual levels. This is somewhat similar to the Mangekyo Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. Maybe chakra can transmit the mind, so the weapons made will also reflect the mind to a certain extent. Nara Shintaku spoke bluntly. Boom. This is another heavy bomb. It caused an uproar in an instant. Reflecting the mind? The Uchiha clan's Mangekyo Sharingan. Doesn't this mean that we are creating a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan? If that's all. Everyone looked at the Uchiha clan leader present. The Uchiha clan leader was horrified and panicked. Reflecting the mind. I'm ashamed that these two dare to study it in depth. Jiraiya took a breath and looked at Orochimaru and Nara with admiration. Yes, and they even mentioned Mangekyo Sharingan. The third Hokage smiled bitterly. Tsunade looked at the two with dissatisfaction. She said, "What are you afraid of?" With the current strength of Nara and Orochimaru, Uchiha is no match at all. Even if it's Mangekyo Sharingan, it doesn't pose a threat. Episode 48. Yes, this technique is also taught publicly. Is Shintaku-kun so strong? Minato was shocked. Tsunade glanced at him and said calmly, "You are the one who learned the blood suit technique and the flying sickle technique. Don't you know how powerful these two techniques are? Besides, do you think Shintaku has not developed other techniques? For example, his family's shadow secret technique?" Tsunade asked 3 questions in a row. Minato was stunned and opened his mouth unconsciously. At this time, he realized belatedly that Nara Shintaku had gone so far. This child is only 6 years old. Ahem. At this time, the Uchiha clan leader coughed and asked, "Mitaku-kun, what effect can the weapon forged by this technique achieve?" "Don't worry, Uchiha clan leader." Nara Mitaku smiled and comforted him. "I just gave the example of Mangekyo Sharingan for the sake of convenience. In fact, the weapon forged in the end will only gain some power related to the forger. For example, the weapons forged by the Senju clan may gain the ability of Yang escape. The Nara clan may gain the ability to assist the shadow secret technique. The Aburame clan may gain the ability to control insects." Hearing this, the Uchiha clan leader was relieved. Others secretly said it was a pity. If it could reach the level of Mangekyo Sharingan, it would be great. Besides, forging is not easy. Nara Shintaku paused and then said, "In the state of spiritualization technique, a virtual or real soul weapon can be forged very efficiently. The next best is the Yamanaka clan. Through the soul leaving the body, instilling emotions, will, and chakra, probably between brothers, between fathers and sons, between masters and apprentices, if relayed, 2 generations can succeed in one." Everyone couldn't help but look at the head of the Yamanaka clan. The head of the Yamanaka clan showed surprise. He didn't expect that the practice of this technique was actually the advantage of the Yamanaka clan. As for the others, Nara Shintaku looked at everyone and spread his hands regretfully. Without the spiritualization technique and the ninjutsu of leaving the body, it can only be forged with chakra in a water grinding style. Maybe at least 5 or 6 generations can produce one. Moreover, to forge a soul weapon, all chakra metal must be used. No other things can be mixed. Nara Shintaku pointed out the shortcomings of this technique. Despite this, it can't cool everyone's enthusiasm. Does it take several generations to forge a weapon? I think it's worth it. Yes, this is a good thing to increase the family's heritage. No wonder the people invited today are all family ninjas. The Yamanaka clan got a great deal. The clan leaders and parents were calculating in their hearts, and their hearts gradually became hot. They knew the value of this technique. It is equivalent to each family mastering a unique ninja tool that fits the characteristics of the family. Once, the Uchiha clan had several ninja tools, but unfortunately they were all taken away by Uchiha Madara. I don't know how many families envy those ninja tools. This technique is of great value. Jiraiya glanced around, looking at the clan leaders around him with burning eyes, and sighed. Yeah, I'm tempted, and I regret giving all my personal chakra metal to them that day. The third Hokage sighed. Hehe, the Senju clan has a lot, old man, do you want to exchange things with me? Tsunade said with a smile. The third Hokage glared at Tsunade unhappily. He knew that he was going to be exploited by this apprentice again. However, one is willing to fight and the other is willing to suffer. Who made this technique so valuable? No family can refuse it. Although he is a Hokage, he is also the patriarch of the Sarutobi clan. It is impossible not to give up this technique. I call this technique the soul weapon forging technique. In the field, Nara Shintaku continued. Everyone stopped talking and listened carefully. I also plan to teach this technique publicly. At the same time, I will put the improved spiritualization technique in the sealing book, which will reduce the risk a little bit. If you find someone with the qualifications to practice, you can recommend him to me. After I pass the assessment, I will teach him the spiritualization technique. Nara Shintaku said with a smile. Wow. Everyone smiled and laughed happily. Although they had guessed that public testing meant public teaching. But before the announcement, no one dared to be sure. Thank you so much, Shintaku-kun. The Aburame clan will remember your kindness. The Inuzuka clan too. Senju/Uchiha/Hyuga/Kurama/Tsukusiki, the same goes. The clan leaders and heads of all the clans bowed solemnly to Nara Shintaku. They were grateful enough to receive this precious technique. That's great. The third Hokage looked at this scene with a touch of emotion. He didn't feel jealous at this moment. Orochimaru's recent changes made him determined to pass the position of Hokage to Orochimaru. As Orochimaru's disciple, Nara Shintaku's popularity is Orochimaru's popularity. The gratitude of the ninja clans will help Orochimaru secure the position of Hokage. When Orochimaru comes, there will be no need for a Danzo to deal with the things in the dark. The third Hokage thought hopefully in his heart. Ahem, although it is open teaching, there are certain conditions. Nara Shintaku said. Everyone stood up, all with an understanding expression. Being able to receive open teaching is already a great advantage. It is impossible to expect free teaching. Next, please let the third generation adults speak. Nara Shintaku made a gesture of invitation and left the center of the venue. The third Hokage walked forward with a smile and looked at everyone. Third generation adults. All the clan leaders and parents saluted. Episode 49. Shintaku, this isn't your first life, right? Everyone. The third Hokage didn't waste any words and went straight to the point. I think you have also noticed that the war is about to begin again. Everyone's expression suddenly became solemn. I want this technique. In the next war, you will need to serve me more. It's that simple. The hook is straight and the bait is salty. But no one will not take the bait. Everyone looked at the third Hokage excitedly with fiery eyes. No problem. Die for the village. The Uchiha clan will definitely appear in the most dangerous place. The Aburame clan is the same. The crowd was excited. The third Hokage also said a lot of words of encouragement and mobilization happily. Nara Shintaku was no longer interested in listening. He left the field with Orochimaru. Outside the Umbu base. The two walked side by side, talking about the next research. For research, once the previous project is completed, it is no longer attractive. They can't wait to start the next project. I have some ideas recently. Orochimaru's eyes flickered, and he turned to look at Nara Shintaku. But he did not say his thoughts, but his face became serious, his eyes were deep, and he slowly said, Shintaku, who are you? He suddenly asked an unreasonable question. Nara Shintaku stopped and looked at him indifferently. Since the spiritualization technique, no, since studying Yugo's body fluids and developing the power of immortal arts, I realized one thing. Orochimaru looked directly at Nara Shintaku, his eyes sharp. It is possible to obtain a long life through ninjutsu. And the research on the spiritualization technique made me realize that the soul can abandon the body and live forever. This reminds me of a question. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes, and his vertical pupils, like snakes, stared at Nara Shintaku tightly. Mitaku, your talent is amazing. Although it can be explained by genius, another answer may be more reasonable. For example, Nara is not your first life. The air suddenly became quiet. The master and the apprentice stood in the forest, looking at each other. The atmosphere was slightly tense. Ha! Nara laughed softly, breaking the atmosphere that was about to condense, and looked at Orochimaru with interest, saying, "Finally, you can't help it and ask this question, Orochimaru teacher? Do you agree with this?" Orochimaru's expression remained unchanged. "That's right." Nara grinned, "This is not my first life." Wow. Orochimaru's expression changed slightly, and a storm was set off in his heart. He knew it. Nara is indeed a certain old monster. That's great, ha ha ha. Orochimaru was not surprised but happy, looking up and laughing. A real immortal appeared in front of me, which is the greatest affirmation of my pursuit of things. There is no better thing than this. I am so lucky, my god, I actually accepted an immortal as my apprentice. Orochimaru laughed wildly. His voice was hoarse, but he was extremely excited. He even laughed so hard that tears came out. Nara Shintaku patiently waited for Orochimaru to vent his emotions before speaking. What are you going to do? Expose me? Become my enemy? Orochimaru shook his head and said with a smile, I don't plan to do anything, it's better to say that I want to join you. Aren't we always walking together? Nara Shintaku asked back. Haha, that's right. Orochimaru smiled and nodded, we are always walking together. At this moment, the bond between the two deepened a little bit. The so-called fellow travelers in the past were just fellow travelers pursuing the same goal. But now, they are real partners. Like-minded, supportive of each other. After confirming that you are an immortal, I feel relieved. I can tell you many things without worrying about your age. Orochimaru paused and said, I've been thinking about chakra recently. Nature transformation is rich and comprehensive. Isn't this power too advanced? It's too advanced. It shouldn't be possessed by low-level creatures like humans. Excuse me, Mr. Shintaku of the Immortal, can you give me some information? Orochimaru looked at Nara Shintaku with a smile. His eyes were full of expectations. Of course, no problem. Nara Shintaku also smiled and said, the myth is true. Chakra was taught to humans by the Sage of Six Paths. The moon was also created by the Sage of Six Paths, and the tailed beasts were also created by the Sage of Six Paths. The ninja clan also exists. The clan history of Senju and Uchiha is correct. Their ancestors are indeed descendants of the Sage of Six Paths. Nara Shintaku directly gave Orochimaru a spoiler. Orochimaru was horrified when he heard this, and his eyes widened unconsciously. He thought of many possibilities. But he never thought of this possibility. The myth is actually real history? No wonder. Orochimaru's expression changed rapidly, and he murmured, that explains it. So those techniques? No, that's what everyone said. He paced back and forth in the forest. His heart was surging, and he couldn't help himself. Nara Shintaku's words seemed to break the most critical layer of paper, making him figure out a lot of things in an instant. For a while, Orochimaru calmed down, took a deep breath, and asked Nara, excuse me, have you seen the Sage of Six Paths? No. Nara shook his head and said, I have not witnessed his history, but I know that the great Toad Sage of Mount Myaboku has witnessed it with his own eyes. Episode 50. Soul Scalpel and Uchiha's Sharingan. He? Orochimaru's pupils shrank sharply, and he suddenly noticed this address. He was immediately attracted by this he. He didn't even care about the heavy news such as Mount Myaboku and Great Toad Sage in the second half of the sentence. Are you sure it's he? Orochimaru looked at Nara in shock. Of course. Nara nodded and smiled, would I lie about such a thing? Hiss. Orochimaru took a breath of air. Indeed, Nara didn't need to lie to him about such a thing. So, the legendary Sage of Six Paths is really a living god. Interesting, so interesting. Orochimaru licked his tongue, showed an excited smile, and said in a low voice, I am more and more interested in the secrets of the ninja world. Just right, I was still hesitating. But the information you revealed made me determined. Orochimaru looked at Nara. What determination? Nara asked. Study the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. Orochimaru said in a deep voice. Nara Shintaku narrowed his eyes slightly. He was a little surprised. Is Orochimaru still obsessed with the power of the Uchiha clan? I originally planned to give up because the potential of the curse seal exceeds the Sharingan. But the soul scalpel I forged allows me to perform surgery directly on the soul, energy, and body, cutting, suturing, and modifying any part at will. The abandoned plan was picked up again by me. Plus the information you revealed, Uchiha is a descendant of the Sage of Six Paths. I want to study Sharingan even more. Orochimaru laughed, paused, and said. It can be regarded as the fulfillment of my long-cherished wish. That's it. Nara nodded and asked, what are you going to do? Root. Orochimaru said in a low voice, the Root has secretly kept many Uchiha corpses in a secret base outside. Those are enough for me. This surprised Nara. He actually planned to attack the Root? I thought you would kill Uchiha. Nara laughed. It's not that serious yet. Orochimaru waved his hand and said, besides, I plan to cut ties with Danzo. The teacher's attitude has changed. I have the hope of becoming Hokage. This was my ideal when I was young. Orochimaru showed a nostalgic smile on his face. Obviously, he still has the dream of becoming Hokage now. Really? Nara couldn't deny it. In his opinion, the position of Hokage is meaningless. But he would not interfere with Orochimaru's approach. When do we leave? Nara asked, looking ahead at the same time. A system panel that only he could see appeared. Current template, Kurotsuchi Mayuri. Development progress, 34%. Developed technologies, blood armor technique, dynamic blood armor and static blood armor, flying sickle technique, exclusive sage mode, yin-yang release Kidō, soul activation ascend technique, soul weapon forging technique. Soul weapon forging technique has just been announced for public teaching. It has not been officially disseminated yet. At the same time, the 7 types of escape techniques have also been developed. Before reaching 40% progress and obtaining the stage rewards. Nara Shintaku is very free. About 2 weeks later. Orochimaru estimated the time and said, after the soul weapon forging technique is publicly taught, those ninjas will visit me, and I have to spend some time to get rid of them. Okay. Nara Shintaku nodded. 2 weeks, just take it as a 2-week vacation. After the two finished talking about things, they left separately. 3 days later. Nara Shintaku received Orochimaru's message and came to a public training ground. He was surprised to see a stranger. Yuhi Kurenai? Question mark. Nara Shintaku put a question mark, and a bad premonition emerged in his heart. Let me introduce you. Orochimaru smiled and pointed at Yuhi Kurenai and said, this is my new disciple, Yuhi Kurenai of the Yuhi family, and she will be your junior sister in the future. Mitaku-kun, please give me more advice. Yuhi Kurenai bowed politely. Yes, give me more advice. Nara Shintaku twitched his mouth and nodded perfunctorily. He looked at the girl in front of him. The black hair draped over her shoulders, the ruby-like eyes, the cute and well-behaved face, she didn't look like a ninja at all, but like a lady from a noble family. Her quiet and virtuous temperament was particularly conspicuous. Kure, wait a minute, I'll talk to your senior brother. Orochimaru smiled and waved, and walked out of the field. Yes. Yuhi Kurenai responded obediently. Nara Shintaku sighed in his heart and walked out of the field helplessly. The two masters and apprentices exchanged in a low voice. Mitaku, I came here for you. Orochimaru, what benefits did you receive? Alas, I asked the third-generation teacher for help, and I can't refuse. When you say this, please put away your smile. Anyway, that's it. I still have things to do, Kurenai, I'll ask you to guide the practice. Fuck. Nara Shintaku has no interest in taking care of children. What's more, the other party's purpose is not pure. Learning from a master is secondary, and getting him Nara Shintaku is the main purpose. Just give her some guidance. This kid is very good at illusions, but his physical and ninjutsu skills are just passing. In the future, it will be good if she can become a jonin. It is destined not to be our companion. Orochimaru shook his head and glanced at the blank-looking Kurenai in the field, with a trace of pity in his eyes. Taking her as a student is just an exchange of interests. Nara Shintaku did not speak, but also glanced at Kurenai. He knew the plot and knew that Orochimaru's judgment was correct. Kurenai was in the same period as Asuma and Kakashi, but lagged behind for several years before being promoted to a formal jonin. The talent is indeed not good. But I won't help you for free. Nara Shintaku stared at Orochimaru. Oh? What do you mean? Orochimaru couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. I want 70% of the benefits. That kind of benefit is of no value to you. Yuhi Shinku only promised to help me win over Umbu. Then you owe me one. Okay. The two reached a deal and returned to the training ground.